Welcome to the latest edition of the CISO Perspective. I'm here with Lisa Markey. We're here at the Brandy Library, and as I've learned, one of the number one priorities and issues that CISOs deal with on a day-to-day basis is the stress of the job. So why not talk at the Brandy Library?
Absolutely. I kind of feel that this is the New York version of the St. Bernard. I'm really happy to be here.
Very good. So let's just start by introducing yourself, because most people who are going to be watching don't know you. If you could introduce yourself and talk about your journey into cybersecurity, and did you always know that you wanted to get into cybersecurity, and how did you make your way from England to New York?
Well, actually, very good question, because I didn't know that I wanted to be in cybersecurity because it didn't really exist when I got into it. I was the first security engineer at Lehman Brothers in Europe, so I didn't know. Nobody knew really at that stage in business. So I came from an infrastructure background. I did an engineering degree. I've always been a geek. I worked in server engineering, messaging. I had a an unusual journey to the world of business. I spent most of my 20s backpacking. I did an engineering degree and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be an engineer specifically. So I did contract work. I was, building servers, running messaging systems. And then I spent sort of 2 years traveling in Asia and living in Australia. And I came back and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of 30 odd now and I really need a serious job. So I got a job at Lehman Brothers as senior engineer in the server engineering team, as I say. And 3 weeks later, the love bug hit. And there was no VMware back then, no pushing a button and it all. I spent a week rebuilding Exchange servers. And I thought, ooh, this is interesting. And they kept hitting these internet worms. So Lehman hired a security manager for Europe. They didn't have a CISO at the time. He came actually quite significantly later. And so I buddied up to him. I looked at I became the antivirus specialist, and he asked me if I would like to move over. So I started in April 2000 as senior engineer. By January, I was the security engineer, and it all started there.
Wow.
And so, as I say, these worms and viruses kept hitting, and I I don't think I'm sharing too much information. I think everybody was hit by something. Lehman got hit by a major incident that took down the equities trading floor for 3 days. And if you can imagine how much that would cost. And so they created this new program, and part of that was setting up a security operations function. So I had been, in the same way I'd buddied up to the security manager, I'd been buddying up to New York because they brought me here on a work trip in 2001, and I was like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be.
Yep.
This is where I'm meant to be. Know your place, understand yourself, where you can be the authentic version of you is one of my great mottos. And so yeah, they thought it was their idea, but really it wasn't. It was mine. And they moved me over here in 2004. I've just celebrated my 15th anniversary.
Wow,
it's been an amazing journey.
Very good. So one of the challenges is protecting the business, but at the same time allowing the business to run efficiently. So tell me about how you handle that.
I think the really important thing is to be embedded in the business. You have to understand how the business operates, business needs, security. It's a bit of a cliche at this stage, but security as a business enabler is absolutely paramount. And it's not just about having a seat at the boardroom. It really isn't. It's about knowing people at every level through the organization and understanding their challenges. And, some of the people I've seen that aren't great CISOs, and we're not all fabulous, but it's generally when somebody's been promoted from IT and, the network manager is often that person. Networking is crucial, understanding routing, etc., how the infrastructure fits together is really critical. But it's the technology side. Cyber has evolved to a stage where it's the technology is one piece, and unless you have the right contacts and the understanding, it's really critical before you put a control in. You can't just say, okay, you're going to do this. The people that fail say, okay, you need to do this. The people that succeed are the people go, oh, what do you need to do? Okay, let me help you work out how to do that properly. And see it as a problem that needs to be solved rather than a requirement that needs to be enforced. I think one of the really interesting things is that some people see security as a compliance checkbox. Okay, so we've got this in place, tick, we've got this in place, tick. But unless you think about the real security and like what really protects the firm and whatever your data is, for us it's client data. I mean, the client is paramount, and every moment of every day I'm thinking client data, client data. um, you know Unless you know what you need to do for the business, then you may as well go home.
Yeah, very good point. What would you say are the top three priorities that you're facing and focusing on going into 2020?
So cloud is huge. I think the technology companies have just made it so that even if you don't want to go to cloud, you have to. They're just like we've looked at cloud versus on-prem, and the cost differentials, never mind the efficiency savings, like literally are orders of magnitude. Cloud is huge, and that means that paradigm change leads to the others. I think there has never been a more important time to be back to basics. Knowing where your assets are. That's the SANS number one critical control. It has never been more important because everything is that we are on the edge of chaos. Technology is on the edge of chaos, and that's, say the edge of chaos, that means where you step over and you're into chaos, but if you step back, you're into where you can't facilitate, back to your point about facilitating the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to know what you've got and where, and the technology solutions to help you with that. But really, it's about process and about understanding and mindset, cyber hygiene, operational hygiene, even when it isn't about cyber. And the other basics, really, identity is so key. Zero trust is another of those sort of buzzwords right now, but actually, it's really important
Right.
because we cannot, the perimeter disappeared a long time ago, and a lot of us have known that, but I think everybody is at that stage now. We're like, oh, mobile devices everywhere. There are very, very few business models that don't have people traveling, people needing to access from different locations. Um, you know, I think the other challenge with this is visibility. And, these are all foundation stones. People are trying to do this. If you think about it in a pyramid, they're trying to all this sexy, like data lakes, data analytics, and all of those things, which are really important. But unless you have the foundation stones, you're doomed to failure and chaos. Unless you know what you're putting in a data lake, and you know that you've classified everything, that your data items are consistent, that one system feeding into the data lake is calling something the same as the others, and that you have something to control that and govern it, then you are going to data swamp really quickly. And, really, vulnerability management, all of these, I could name 10. So I will summarize back to
Yeah,
basics.
no, that's good. It's a really good point. So, kind of switching gears into the kind of executive presence at the the boardroom or the management meeting,
Mhm.
specifically at the board meeting. So, oftentimes the CISO doesn't hold a budget. You may, but sometimes they don't. And
Mhm.
so, how do you come to the board, to the executive table, and represent the what you need to do and hold a seat there?
Well, firstly, I wouldn't take a job or stay in a job where I didn't have that seat. If it didn't have that seat, that would indicate to me that the firm didn't get it, And that, the reality of being a CISO is that there is personal risk. At the end of the day, my name is on the end of that news report. When you see the news reports
That's
of
right.
breaches, there CISO's always there, and there's always something more you could have done, and there's always a lot of things you did that didn't help. The reality of breaches is there, and if you don't have that support, then I would be concerned. That's one of the things. I have such amazing support from the executive director on the board that I report into, and from the financial perspective, it's again about visibility and metrics. Metrics can be useful, lies, damn lies, and statistics. And it's not about reporting vulnerabilities and that sort of thing. It's about, showing how long it takes to respond to an incident, which is something that massively protects the firm. And then saying, well, okay, so we've got this many people in security operations. If we can orchestrate this, we can do sort of automation around the noise at the bottom. Not only will our people be happier, but the users will get a response time quicker. And then the metric you can show is that with orchestration, you really slow. Sorry, the other way around. We do not want to slow.
No, you don't.
We speed
Right.
up the time to respond, and
Right.
that's a useful thing to see. You have to think again back to the needs of the business. What does the business care about, and show risks relating to that. And it's an ongoing conversation. If you are going into the board once a year and saying, these are our metrics, this is what we did, aren't we great, give me money, and it's not an ongoing backwards and forwards, look, we saw this, it's an ongoing conversation.
Right.
You're going to be in trouble. That's
very good.
Mm.
Very good point. So focusing on a new CISO coming into the business, what would you suggest as advice for the first 3 months getting up to speed?
Firstly, understand your key stakeholders. The CISO role is very much PR. It is a sales job. It is really relationship building. Obviously different companies have different sizes, and there's going to not one size doesn't fit all, but everything in this job is about the people. It's about understanding the business. If you're not familiar with that business, understanding how that business operates, how it interacts with its competitors, how it is appeared in the market, what are the reputational risks that they care about, not just the technical risks, so the people. Also, just know thine infrastructure. You cannot protect what you don't understand. So I want to know how people are operating down to network engineer level. I want to know how, as a security function, you push work out to lots of the other IT groups. How are they handling that? How do you know that they're following up on what you need them to do? So a patch comes out, what is their process around handling that? Where is the governance? Who owns this? Who owns that?
That's really good advice. Yeah, very good. So now switching gears, just focusing on women in cyber, which is this podcast is all about. What challenges have you faced? Have you faced any along the way, being a woman in the cybersecurity world?
It's a really interesting one. Since I've been in cyber, which admittedly is nearly 20 years, so things have changed dramatically socially, culturally in that time anyway. I found a lot more challenges when I was in infrastructure. I find that there is an urgency in cyber where everybody is on board. We're fighting an adversary, and there is a collaboration that you don't have in the infrastructure groups. And actually, I do see that still. I know that I am very closely linked to my counterparts at peer firms, and my old counterparts in financial services. I came from financial
Mm-hmm.
services. And there is a collaboration there. And I think there is a different mentality because of that adversary. We know that unless we share information and help each other, the bad guys will win. And there is nothing a cyber person hates more than the bad guys winning. So honestly, I think it's been good from that perspective. I also think that cyber is one of the more creative areas of technology. So, and, I don't want to go into gender stereotypes, obviously, but I feel there's a sort of a creativity in women that,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that certainly about me, I'm a very creative person, and I think I use that to great advantage in my career. So, I haven't had major issues, but I will say this to you, and I've said this to many women, and every woman I've said it to has a light bulb moment, which kind of scares me. But we talk about the glass ceiling, and we talk about the glass ceiling because we're hitting our head against it. But the point about the glass ceiling is it's the glass ceiling. The issue is we can't see it. It's not because we're hitting our heads against it, because we don't feel that we are, because we don't know what could otherwise be. You don't know what you don't know, and nobody's going to tell you. So I think that awareness of like thinking, like, okay, I'm here and this is great and I'm doing really well, but I'm always sort of, since I had that light bulb moment, I've been like, okay, well, what's going on out here?
Yeah.
And like keeping an eye on that. And something somebody said to me a long time ago was like, have somebody that you can bounce off, like that you think of as a peer in terms of ambition, energy, intelligence, etc., and sort of balance against them. Keep alongside them and see, okay, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all very, especially in New York, so culturally, we don't talk about money. But if you don't talk about money, then you're never going to know if you're paid. I see the salary surveys and they're very slanted. They don't seem realistic. I think you need to really be collaborating with your trusted people to understand that you're in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Good. And I think this goes along too with what advice you would give to a woman that's in cyber already, wanting to advance their career, or somebody that's new getting into
Hmm.
it. And
Right.
I think your point about just showing up, being there, and really looking at what's out there, what's available,
Hmm.
and really believing in yourself that you should be here and you
Hmm.
have that, you have all of that open to you, that opportunity open to you. But I'd like to hear from your perspective what you would say to somebody either trying to
Yeah.
advance in cybersecurity or just get into it now.
Right. Well, I think everybody in cyber, or the good people in cyber, are very bright. You need to know your stuff. So, and having that platform will give you confidence. There's nothing more confidence inspiring than walking into a room and knowing you know your stuff. If you walk in, and because people will find you out, because cyber people are very curious. They're like, no, 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 oh, what? What did you just say? You really, really. I study all the time. I keep up. I read. I read. I read. And I really would advise that. But confidence and knowing and just wanting to be a part of it, curiosity, I think, is one of the key things, and authenticity. And I know, I feel these are slightly cliches as well, but cliches happen because they're real. I think being authentic to yourself, differentiating yourself, what is it about you that makes you unique? When you walk in a room, what do people see? And I truly believe in the fake it till you make it and self awareness. Like, okay, get people to tell you, I'm going to walk in this room, just watch me. We're going to an event tonight. Watch me. What did I do well? What did I do wrong? My girlfriends and I over the years, and I'm all about the girls' network. Um, we help each other on it and introduce each other to like. One of the things I like about women in cyber is that because of this collaborative thing, there isn't that competitive. I've seen this competitive thing with women, and I wish it wasn't there, but it is. I've seen people want to take people down because they're competitive with them because they're another woman in their space,
Yeah.
and that is wrong. You know, we need to support each other, feedback, and,
Mm-hmm.
be there for each other. So, network, meet people, build those networks. Will you meet somebody, follow up, like we met,
Right.
we've kept in touch,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's really important. And I have a really good, strong network because of that. And it's all
That's
about the network.
It is. It really is. I remember when we first met here at the
Hmm.
Brandy Library, and yeah, and that's the whole point is just networking.
Hmm.
It's collaborating and really looking at that as a mentorship as
Yeah.
well. And why not? No
Hmm.
better place to mentor than at the Brandy Library.
Absolutely. I mentor people all the time, but in a very informal way. And I am in turn mentored by other people. I know, let's not meet in an office and
Right.
go through lists. Let's just sit down and have a chat over a glass of
Right.
wine or a nice glass of brandy.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So one last question: what do you like to do when you're not in CISO mode?
Oh, I am a obsessive crazy traveler. As I told you, I spent much of my 20s on my backpack with a backpack on. I, I spent at least 2 years walking around Asia when I was younger, and India, and I've been to 44 countries, 26 US states, many of those countries and states multiple times. I just love the feeling of being in motion. And people, like my friends, ask me, how do you deal with corporate America or corporate England for that matter? And I say that I managed to navigate the Indian railway system on a 40-hour train journey with 3 different trains in multiple different states. You couldn't buy a ticket for one at the same as the other. You had to buy a ticket for each train as a
Yeah.
different thing. If I can do that, there is nothing corporate America can throw at me. And as I say, I'm very creative. I collect art. I love art, music, people. People. I just love to get out there and talk to people. I'm a people person.
Interesting. Good. Now, I didn't. I just thought of another question because I actually heard it on another podcast that I really thought was interesting, um, and it's at the end, so you can answer it or not. But what would be the most interesting thing that's happened at work, like a I don't know a security situation or something? You don't have to name names, but just I've been listening to these and it's really intriguing, and I think maybe our
Mm.
audience would like to hear that.
Do you know, I've been working alongside HR for nearly 20 years on incidents, not necessarily security incidents, but I never cease to be amazed by the stupidity of otherwise highly intelligent people. Um, I have seen some of the craziest things that people do, that ruin their lives. I don't think I can share any that I've seen internally, but there was a guy in the papers in the UK who was an investment banker, and he got 2 trains to work. And the first train, they didn't generally check the tickets, and then he'd buy a ticket from the next place, so he only paid for half of his journey. And they spotted him and they watched him and they prosecuted him, and he lost his banking license. And he's an investment banker. He was earning hundreds of thousands of pounds. And for that, like people that cheat their expenses, people that like I mean, you can't do it anymore. That people that used to watch porn at work, you can't do. And technology fixed that,
Right.
thankfully. But
That's right.
that's the thing. It's the small people get caught on the small noise, and it ruins their lives. And I'm honestly never cease to be amazed. And I've like 20 years of incidents, and and it's senior people often as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's what I'm
It's
hearing too. It's like why?
just
Yeah, you don't know
crazy.
why. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay. Well, that concludes our episode of Women in Cyber. Thank you very much.